water, earth, fire, air. Avatar Legends, coming soon to Tabletop Misfits.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to Tavern Talks. I am your wonderful barkeep of the Mythweaver's Respite, and tonight we have a new adventurer coming to see us at the inn. Now, our adventurer his name is Chris, and he is the creator owner of Dwarven Palette, which is an art. Is from what I found out just a couple minutes ago, art of all sorts, not just of the digital and traditionals type. So before we dive into finding out which character he's bringing to the adventure and where he's coming from, let's give Chris a couple minutes to tell us who he is.
Go for Chris. All right, sweet. So I am the owner and artist, primary artist anyway, of the Dwarven Palette, and I pretty much do all sorts of art from I'm traditionally trained in drawing, painting, and sculpting, and then I also do all of those things digitally as well. So from doing green stuff on miniatures to sculpting miniatures in ZBrush is something that I've done and went to school for. I also do fine art painting and all sorts of other things. There's stuff behind me that I've made or been a part of on certain teams and stuff. I think the last major one we did was called the Necromancer's Tower, and it came with full character sheets for that stuff, which I did all the layout and the artwork for. And then I had another friend that I hired to write, and then we did basically 28mm scale miniatures for everybody to play with in a huge castle with 3 layers of play that all your characters could fit into, which is on the table back here. And then there's 7 layers of catacombs that go underneath it that you can also do the same thing with. It's on the floor behind me, but it's huge. It basically butts up to the table. So the whole thing, when it's all said and done, takes like 6 months to print and stands like 5 feet tall. So
wow,
it's enormous.
Super cool though. Not gonna lie, you place that on a table and you're gonna just like catch some eyes. That's for sure. Ever thought about taking that to like a convention? Because I know quite a few conventions that would love to see something like that.
It's set up to travel. So we actually built it so that it takes 3 foot tall 1/4-inch dowels, and we can put it on a platform and carry the whole thing, so everything doesn't slide apart and whatnot in there. And then it's got a full pegging system in there that where it's got a bunch of different pegs to notch all the different layers together.
Right.
It's quite cool. It would be like the monster centerpiece of any place that we took it. But as you can see, I've only got the zenithal highlight on that thing. It takes a while to have some time to actually sit down and airbrush in and make it look nice and do that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, and you're gonna have to full airbrush color for hours trying to get that thing the right
to match. Yes.
Yep.
Rattle cans help some.
Yeah, true. All right. Well, Chris, it's great to have you here in the tavern, and we're going to find out exactly what all types of artwork you've done and your backstory and those types of things. But before we do that, let's find out who you brought to the Mythweaver's Respite and where they're coming from. So before we start, this is where you get to tell us where your character is starting. Now, I don't want any descriptions on your character. I just want to know where you're at.
So, right now, I am currently standing in the filthiest, most disgusting looking marsh you have ever seen. It reeks. It's literally bubbling all around us. You can hear the animals chattering in the background. The occasional alligator swims by in the water. It's definitely not a place that's friendly.
All right. So this will be interesting because let's find out where this comes from. So the idea of the Mistweaver's Respite is it's the next door you open.
Mhm.
So what does that look like? Where are we going?
So, as I walk away from the murky nastiness towards my hut that is on the edge of this boggy kind of environment, I'm going to slide my fingers across the open shawl door that I have and enter into my hut.
All right. And as you would expect to enter into a hut in the middle of the marsh, instead you are immediately greeted by soft music. And inside, a warm fireplace, which immediately catches you. And you can see straight ahead one single person standing behind a strong, long oak bar, has a similar outfit to what I'm wearing right now. And he's cleaning what looks like 3 glasses. And he's got a towel flipped over his shoulder. And he looks over and he goes, "Well, welcome to the Mistweaver's Respite. I am your wonderful barkeep. Come, have a drink. Tell a tale."
Oh, as I stand up and kind of adjust my overall kind of shaggy looking leathery armor, just shifting, I kind of lock eyes with the barkeep, and in a low kind of hiss kind of voice, I'm like, "Where did you say this was?"
"Sir, I am everywhere and nowhere all at once.
So,
But it seems you have a tale to tell because I only show up when you do."
well, then I suppose you should pour me a pint of ale. As I lift, you notice as I walk forward, I drag my claws on the floor and kind of plop the pads of my feet into the ground, and my tail sways behind me. And as I approach the bar, I lift over myself and remove my great bow and set it down onto the counter.
You watch really quick as he lifts it up real quick, cleans up underneath, back down. "All right, let me get you a glass." Turns around, pours a frothy glass of ale, slides it over to you. "Now, as I said, most don't see me unless they have a tale to tell. Everything costs a tale. No money is worth it here because your money is not worth it anywhere else. So, what does this cost you?"
Well, as I kind of adjust myself again, staring into my ale, I can tell you of the siege of Gordon, a small port town where myself and a band of like-minded individuals decided to ransack this village. As he chuckles, thinking of all the havoc he's wrought.
And as the dwarf stares back at you, what is he staring at?
He is staring at a very large and slender yet muscular looking reptilian creature. 3-fingered, large pads, 2.5-inch claws, apparently on each hand, opposable thumbs. And he's he's got 3-fingered toes, basically, also large pads with a large dew claw angled backwards on the interior. His scales are kind of mud crusted, but you can see that there's glimmers of yellow ochre kind of colors and greens on it, and a light, very faint kind of blue war paint across half of his face, almost in a smear.
All right.
It's got a large, raggedy-looking hood that into a half cloak, obviously, to get in and out of a quiver that's still on his back.
All right. And as he looks you up and down to see that you come from a little bit of a rougher world than he's seen of some of the other guests that have been here.
Mhm.
You mentioned of a village that you ransacked.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the reason for such a ransack?
Well, it was a strategic location for us to invade the rest of this continent through. If we controlled the port, we controlled all of the other assets since they were a primarily seafaring country. All of their imports and exports came through this port.
You're militaristic.
Nah, I was hungry too. Man flesh.
And was it just yourself, or did you have a band of compatriots to guide you on your journey?
Well, initially we had a small band. There was several ogres, a couple of other kind of turncoaty dwarves, and a few other humans. They didn't seem to like the other ones.
Always wonder why people come to my bar. There's only one reason to be here, and that is if you had a story to tell.
Well,
I have to ask, did you have any problems on your journey?
the guard did put up a pretty good fight. It took a while to root him out of that town, but we did eventually get there.
You took over the town.
We did. The poor shopkeep. He met such an unfortunate end.
For our people watching tonight, it sounds like we are dealing with a villain.
As he cackles back and takes another swig of his ale. Well, as I entered this poor shopkeep's little leatherworks shop, he was attempting to flee. Obviously, I'm not the prettiest tool in the shed. So as he's running, he turned around, and at that point, I had leveled my bow and launched a bolt at him, and it pinned him to the door, up off the ground, at least a foot. And I slithered over and slinked up next to him, removed his coin purse, and hissed into his ear that he wouldn't be needing this anymore where he's going. It was such a good day.
It was such a good day. Well, a good day is always worth a good drink.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't happen to have any of that man flesh back there behind the counter now, would you?
I've got other things besides man flesh, but I'm sure I could come up with something. And he walks through a double swaying door into the back room. Comes out with what looks like the head of a boar, like full-blown boar just placed in front of you.
Pork. Close enough.
I figured it would at least catch your fancy a little bit.
And he unceremoniously digs into the boar's head.
Just tears, just rips and tears as you do so, and you can watch.
Yeah, hardly chewing anything, swallowing it as he goes.
You watch just the tendons and the flesh pull from the bone of the skull of the boar. He watches, he kind of takes back a bit as were you always this ravaging?
Well, we all start out a little nicer than this, but under the circumstances of life, the marsh is very eat or be eaten.
It is. Most places
wiping his finger across the counter to pick up stray pieces of pork.
I'll clean that later. It's no worries.
Delicious.
So where do you come from, friend?
Well, it's a bog. Doesn't particularly have a name, unfortunately. We just call it the bog.
The bog.
It's a small community of like-minded lizard folk. But
Your in your humanity, your habitat, you've decided to take over most of your location.
Yes, I have a fairly wide-reaching territory that most don't enter because, if they cross and they don't bring me something shiny, I tend to eat them.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, something I have to ask is there anything you regret?
Well, I regret I didn't bring my hawk friend here with me. He could use a meal.
Well, maybe he'll find a tale he'll need to tell one day and show up as well.
Yeah. Perhaps.
All right. Before we dive out of this, this is a place where the audience has a chance to talk as well. Is there questions that you would ask a player that is just starting out or that you're finding out about that you'd be interested in, kind of to build their character? Now, we do this about every month in our Discord, so if you're not in there, it might be a good time to pop in. And I'm going to pull up some of those questions. One of the questions that hits every guest, and I love this question, is when there's nobody else around and it's just you, how do you act?
In-game, out of game?
In-game.
In-game?
In-game. How does your character act?
It depends on the character significantly.
How does this character? I guess the better question would be is how this character act.
Oh, this character, he is always looking for his next meal.
Okay.
Lizard
so even when there's no one around, the only thing this man thinks about is food.
Exactly. He is very food driven.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes there has to be.
He just wants to be the biggest lizard there is
biggest
really
lizard.
Yep.
There you go. Because I was going to ask you a question about something like that. Because this is one thing that I like to do as a dungeon master is ask things like, what are traditions that your character might have? What are some things that are passed down by family or community? In your case, I would guess.
Yeah. Well, the hunting, the hunting, the use of weaponry, and then the lizard folk culture is fairly savage in general, but it harkens back to almost like it's kind of like a weird cross between like samurai level honor codes versus like backwater hillbilly people.
Okay.
So they have very strange customs around certain particular events, and then everything else seems to be no holds barred kind of thing.
Hey, I mean that's something that you'll notice in a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you what's your motivation, but we've all figured that out.
It's food.
Do you have like I'm curious of this because a lot of people don't play lizard folk and have thought this far into it. Do you have like relatives, or is it kind of a community base where it's like you're just there?
It's a communal rearing kind of thing. So you don't really have like there's no particular like especially in this particular character's backstory, there was no male role model kind of thing. There's like a matron egg keeper who basically rears all the young lizard folk up. And then as they hit a certain age, they get segmented out into other groups, kind of like going to school kind of thing.
Right.
So they train up in different, like all of the males get oriented towards war activities and all the females get trained to go and basically run the commerce. It's very much like almost like a Spartan society where all of the females had all of the wealth and owned all of the businesses, and men were just tools for war at that point. So that's pretty much how all the lizard folk kind of go in that community anyway.
Right. And you had do you have anyone within your close-knit community that you would consider like, I don't know, a friend, family, somebody that really your character connected with?
With that character, it was only a strong bond to that particular clan. So if
Okay.
you were from that particular clan of lizard folk, then you were all treated like family. And if you were from another group from outside of that, you were seen as higher than humans because they always
Right.
wanted to eat them. But you were only like a step above humans.
Hey,
because
it
at that
happens.
point, yeah, you're competition for resources.
Right.
And they're
Okay.
very much they basically infest an area and then overwhelm it.
Right.
And then they expand out, and then that's how you get new groupings.
Nice.
So they kind of spread out and take over territory. Just it almost like think of it like bacteria or the Borg or any of those kind of other.
Yeah, I was thinking immediately. I went StarCraft Zerg. That's exactly what I was like. Everywhere.
Exactly.
Is there anything unique about your character that stands out physically, or like personality, anything?
Personality wise, I mean, I would say that he seemed to be, this particular one that I liked playing had a higher level of intelligence than your average lizard. So the lizard folk kind of character is depicted as, because they're generally depicted fairly backwater.
Right.
And he was higher elevation thinking. So he was always trying to think like 3 steps ahead of everyone else so that he could be the one on top of the dog pile.
Did he ever make it?
He got close. He did. He met an untimely end at one point.
Oh no!
But that's
We're
long into
from the grave, people.
Yeah. Skeletal lizard folk zombies.
Yeah. Ooh. Ew.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Nasty. That's kind of frightening sounding. Yeah. So
should be a drawing.
It should be. If you're drawing, you can draw, because like I said, I can't draw for anything. Got turned into a handbag, maybe.
I think he was big enough to be a couple of them. Maybe even
full luggage case. Full luggage set,
Yep, with matching shoes.
And belt. So this is great. Audience, is there anything else you guys want to know about the character? Something I should have asked very early in the picture is a name. Is always a good thing to start with.
Well, because lizard folks' names are generally long series of guttural hisses and that kind of stuff, he just kind of started going by the name Hiss, which was a moniker that was put on him.
Oh, nice.
So, because he would slink into things and he kind of rolled his S's a lot.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, really?
What is Hiss's biggest fear?
His biggest fear? Honestly, he was not a fan of fire. Like, fire outside of a fire pit, he did not like. So open torches.
I'm not gonna make an old fashioned for him. That's what it is.
Yeah, he had an aversion to like open torches and that kind of stuff. But being a lizard, he could see fairly well in the dark anyway, so he generally didn't use those. But he would shy away and paid a lot closer attention to open fire.
What's Hiss's least favorite thing he's eaten?
Let's see. He was not particularly fond of dwarf because it was greasy. Like duck.
Good to know. Prefer to stay away from the dwarf.
I know, that's why he didn't try to eat you immediately.
I mean, the other part is the fact that there's this massive two-handed battle axe that sits right behind him. Yeah. But we don't usually have to mention about that.
Yeah.
So
the dirty, crusty great bow.
Yeah, from what other people have said, is this character is probably a fae hidden in or like stuck in a dwarven form, because of just how crazy he is. But an over the top, like, I am the barkeep. Like, he has no other reason to be in this world other than to be a barkeep and tell stories. But
it's like a good life.
It really is. I think his sounds fantastic. And what I was trying to see is if there's any reason for his to be poured what we consider memories regret, which is a very strong spirit that comes in a green bottle with a cork on it, and it sits right below the bar, right in front of him. And what we do is it helps people come to grasp on things that might be troubling them. And there's things that happen when you drink that. But it seems that he really doesn't have that.
Yeah, the whole moral code of lizard folk is a little strange to begin with.
Yep. Which is fine, you know. He's been the barkeep of many people, of all shapes, sizes, colors, everything under the sun. We just recently, few weeks ago, had a puffin Aarakocra walk into the bar. So it's been an interesting, you know.
That seems colorful.
It was very colorful, but no, he gives you a nod. He says, "Well, it seems that there's nothing you have regrets on. It seems you don't need a good night's rest, and it seems that the tales you're telling me are, though interesting and a bit morally confusing, have earned yourself another drink." And he pours a second glass for you.
He swirls his finger around the edge of it and then downs it in one go.
All right. And as you do, he quickly cleans up both glasses, wishes you a farewell and a good journey, and kind of motions you to the door. So the next we meet, when your tales are strong and you need a good drink.
Until next we meet. I retrieve my great bow off the counter and sling it back over my shoulder, tip my hood, and saunter on my way out.
And as you saunter your way all the way out of the bar, and you close that door, you're standing in your bog. And the next time you open the door, you're back home. And for now, until
Smells
forever,
like mud.
you will be confused at where this happens and what happened and where this came from. But you always remember the Mythweaver's Respite hides only, it reveals itself only to people who need to tell a tale. And that, my friends, is where our adventure ends. All right. So we found out about Hiss, this very hungry lizard folk. What class was he?
He was a ranger,
Ranger.
actually, with a favorite enemy of humans.
With a favorite enemy of humans. This is where we get the opportunity for our guest or our community to help us. If you want to see Hiss created by our wonderful artist, Brina Luna, you can do that by hopping over to our tip jar and donating as a community $25. Or if Chris feels generous enough, he can donate it himself, and we will get that created. Once that's created, if it is created, I'll drop a Google Drive link at the end of the night, where that character, if it's funded, will pop up in that Google Drive link, and when it does, you'll have it to play in your campaign, probably as a villain. But if you're playing an evil campaign, it might be a friend. Who knows?
It might be a friend, yeah.
It might be a friend. You never know.
It could be.
But I am excited about tonight because not only have we heard about a wonderful character, but now we're going to hear about some cool stuff. And part of it is that big old thing behind him. Actually, like, he was taking it apart. It was awesome. I got really excited when he started doing it. I'm not going to lie.
So
I have been getting involved with things like Dwarven Forge and Warlock tiles, and now I'm like, oh no, I need a 3D printer because otherwise I'm going to spend way too much.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no. Give us kind of a rundown. What all type of art do you do? Because you were throwing all sorts of stuff at me before the stream.
Well, I do, as I said, I draw, paint, and sculpt traditionally, and then I also do all of that digitally. My degrees that I hold are actually Bachelors of Science in Computer Animation because I went and did Full Sail. salutatorian of my class out of 2012. So
Get that.
go people, go
people.
airplanes, I guess, because that's their their mascot.
Really? It's
But
airplanes?
Their mascot is an airplane. They don't have any sports teams or anything because you're there. It's pretty much an intensive. You take
Yeah.
each month is like a semester worth of work for 2 classes. So you pretty much live, breathe, and eat art at that point, and the technical ends of it. There were
For 2 years.
for basically for 21 months if you do the full cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's very, very intense, and I think the worst days of it was one of the Decembers where we had 13 days in a row that were sandwiched together because of all of like the winter break stuff and whatnot, and ours were significantly shorter than what you would expect. I think we had
Right.
like maybe a half a week or a week off, and then we started the next one right away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how it was when I went to tech school for right after high school. Most of those, I wouldn't say they're, well, some of them are advanced. Mine was not advanced. After going through a full 4-year college, it was not advanced. I was highly disappointed. But yeah, a lot of those are very intense, consistent workloads that are over the top amounts of work.
I would say on any given day that I went to classes, it was 4-hour labs, 4-hour lectures, followed by a minimum of 4 hours worth of homework every single day. And you generally did that 6 days a week.
Yeah. So,
and
if you want to be an artist, that's an option.
Well,
I don't know if everybody's interested in that option, but
realistically, the people that stick with it, it trains them to work in that particular field because they will abuse your time in that manner all the time.
Yeah.
Until you're good enough to tell them no.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where it comes from. For most, the most creative workloads, that's kind of where it's at. I feel bad because most creatives are tortured at first.
Well, yeah, and I mean,
it's a heavy workload.
It's a lot of work, and then a lot of people don't realize how much art goes into everything that we use every single day. So they're so used to getting it essentially for free by getting whatever the item is that they don't think that an artist had to actually package that or make it or design the thing or, you know, any of the other stuff that goes into that. There's a lot behind the scenes before anything even ever makes it into the hands of anyone else.
So, because now you've caught my interest on certain things. Is like, what got you into artwork in general? Like, where did that spark come from?
I've always had a desire to draw and create, and it started all the way back when I was like a baby. Even they told me that I would draw on the side of my crib with the bottle when I would get bored, kind of thing. Like I literally painted the crib with one of those bottles and just pushed my hand through it and just did this number across it. So as soon as they realized I had that proclivity, they started funneling me other materials because I have a lot of artistic people in my family anyway. So as soon as that comes up, if you're interested, you immediately get a bunch of stuff to work with. So I just took to pencil and paper and basically became a master of graphite at that point.
That's awesome. No, I mean, truthfully, that's fantastic. Kind of similar to my thing. I had an affinity for computers, and then all of a sudden my grandfather was like, here, sit on my lap and play with a computer at 3 years old. And I was like, okay. And it's been that way ever since. So I will say that sometimes, you know, a lot of people say that you can go back and forth, but there is something about being proficient in one thing and very good at it. I will give you that. But there's ways to branch out, and that's what we're going to hear about, because you've done now, you know, you did the traditional artwork, and then you dove into, you know, what exactly were you learning in Full Sail?
So initially what I went in for was I wanted to work on movies. So I went in for their cinematic version of that stuff. I had recently at that point seen the first Avatar and realized that the computer graphics had gotten up to the point where I would be happy producing something like that for cinema, because up to that point I had looked at most of it and I'm like, outside of a few things done by ILM, it was like, like the special effects always looked cheesy. and I was like, I don't really want my name attached to like a bunch of cheesy special effects because
Right.
that's the limitation of the medium. And then they came out with that, and it just blew me away as far as that. It's one of the few movies I've ever gone back and seen multiple times in the theater, outside of like the Fellowship of the Ring and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
No.
No, I will say Avatar. The story is it's all right. I'm not a big fan of the story. It's very common.
You go for the visuals.
You go for the visuals. I watched
Yeah.
the second one the same reason, and I don't ever go to movies in IMAX 3D ever. And I've seen both Avatars in IMAX 3D because I wanted to see it in the biggest visual I could get it.
Yeah, I actually had friends who worked on that one.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
People I went to school with.
Yeah, no, that's one thing. That's one thing very neat about Full Sail is normally yes, it's an intense workload, but normally you're thrown into that deep level of the industry at the same time. I had a friend of mine that he went for game design there and game programming, and now he works for one of the big AAA game designers. And I was like,
which is awesome.
It's awesome, but at the same time, he told me what his workload was, and I was like, nah.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm currently juggling several large-scale illustration jobs, and one of which will turn into a 3D sculpting job once we're done with the concept art and that kind of stuff. But it's a constant. When you're your own boss, you essentially never get a day off. So as long as you're doing something that you enjoy doing and you love doing it, so like being an artist is essentially a 7 days a week, 365 kind of thing. Like you're basically on all the time for that. So the chief piece of advice I can give to people who want to pursue that career is to carve out time for yourself to do the other things that are important for you. Like for me, first thing in the morning, first thing that happens is I go to the gym. Like I go and I spend like an hour and a half to 2 hours in the gym, and then that's the hardest, heaviest thing I'm going to do all day long, and everything from there is a downhill slope. So just start out with the hard stuff first. Yep. And then the other thing is you have to plan in recreational time. It's okay to play video games. Any artist that tells you that it's not okay to do that or to go play a tabletop game with your friends or whatever, that guy doesn't know what they're talking about. You need to set time aside because those experiences drive your creative juices for later.
And I can completely agree.
Yeah.
So, for somebody who has a full-time job, if let me go this full-time job, half-time job, because these streams don't take, they're not small, and among multiple children and a slew of other things, you have to piece that out. Otherwise, life just gets in the way. And you have to make sure that everything is in balance, which took me years to figure out. It
generally takes us a while to find that good happy medium for what works for each one of us, because different levels for each person. I mean, some people don't need as much gym time, but they need more family time, but you still got to plan for it. So
you have to plan for everything.
Yep.
So this is kind of an interesting point, because I don't know exactly where to go with your how we can divide this with Dungeons and Dragons and with TTRPGs. But where did that start? We found out where the artwork started, but when did you start diving into fantasy? So TTRPGs, Dungeons and Dragons, that kind of thing.
So that stuff all started. I'd always been interested in fantasy. So even when I was artwork, it was always fantasy artwork. So when I was growing up, I was initially looking at people like Frank Frazetta and Boris Vallejo and all of those kinds of people in that thing, and then also very heavily influenced by comic book stuff. So I was following a lot of Todd McFarlane and Image Comics and Top Cow and all those kind of things. Following those particular brands around for titles like Darkness and all of the other things, because I just really like that. And anything I'm trying to remember, Michael Turner. Michael Turner's art and Joe Madureira's art really inspired me on a level that got me thinking about doing what I wanted to do professionally. And as that kind of moved along, I got very heavily into Magic the Gathering, the card game, back in 97, when I started playing. And I still have a huge, massive collection of that kind of stuff. Old reserve list cards and all sorts of stuff they'll never print again kind of thing. But that opened the door into is like, oh, they play a card game that's based around the fantasy stuff that I like. And then I realized, oh, there's my uncle introduced me to this thing called Dungeons and Dragons, where you get to make up characters and roll dice and stuff to see what happens. And it's like, oh, this is fun. Let's do this. So then I ended up playing a lot of games with my brothers growing up, the three of us, and then we would have different friends rotating in from, sometimes it would be my friends, sometimes it would be one of my brother's friends, because we're all like 1 year apart. So it was like boom, 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 kind of thing. And we would play those games with all of our respective friends. And then as I kind of graduated out of high school and stuff, I kind of moved away from the tabletop stuff a little bit more, but I still really heavily was into the fantasy art stuff. And then it kind of came full circle when I went to college the second time. So
Nice.
because I went right out of school and got like an AA in art, and then I spent a while and saved up money trying to figure out where I wanted to go next and what I wanted to do, which I think is a lot smarter than trying to just jump into another, like, finish another 2 years of school into something that I may not have wanted to do.
Which, you know, for a lot of people, that's great. For some people, that doesn't work because they don't ever go back. But that's really the drive you have to choose for yourself, is you know yourself better than not. If you know that you're going to step away from something like that and never return, probably not a good idea to step away. Keep going. But
once you get out of the groove.
Same thing for me. It's the same thing. You know, I went to college right out of high school, did my associates of specialized business, got that out of the way, and then didn't start back my bachelor's for 4.5 years later. So it took a while, but life happens.
I was going to say, life happens, and then you eventually went back and you did finish it. And
I did.
That's the important part.
That's done now. You know, I finished that, and then now I do full-time, I wouldn't say full-time Dungeons and Dragons, but full-time hobby Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. So, but that's awesome. And how many, or what you're running a campaign right now, or?
I haven't played in a few years just due to my schedule. Okay. It's very difficult to get other adults who have the same days off regularly enough for even a bi-weekly kind of a campaign, let alone something more regular. And it's really difficult trying to, because I got pigeonholed into the forever DM slot because I had a lot of friends who had never played, and I was very well versed in playing the game, so I ran the campaigns, which was fun because then I got to create these worlds and play a bunch of different characters and all sorts of cool stuff. Like one of the last campaigns I did, I adapted the Black Cauldron, the old Disney movie, into a campaign for them where they were collecting the bodies and stuff for the Horned King, but they had no idea who it was.
Oh, nice.
And they eventually got up to a point where they had to fight him, and when they did, instead of the cauldron killing them, it teleported them into the next fairy tale. Is what happened. So they all landed essentially in Alice in Wonderland after that.
Oh, that's going to be a trip.
So they were like it was essentially, think of like sliders, but each time that they slid into another parallel dimension, it landed into another fairy tale.
A new fairy tale. Yeah. So next time they'll go to Neverland. Then
exactly. You could go to Neverland, or you could go to Robin Hood, or you could go to any of the different, all these other different stories that I could pull from at that point. So if the campaign ever got stale, that was a quick, easy kind of way for me to slide into something new to keep their interest.
Yeah. No, it's good. I like that. Especially pull from as much as you can. Oh yeah. I tell people all the time, stealing is okay in Dungeons and Dragons. Don't steal specifically everything, but steal concepts, steal ideas, put a spin on them so that it makes it yours, but change characters up, things like that.
Exactly. Well, a lot of those concepts work for a reason. So
yeah, exactly.
There's no reason, it's sitting, there's an underpinned kind of foundation that works. It just happens to have this other skin on top of it. So we can rotate the skin out and use the underpinning.
And in all honesty, if you think about it, movies do it all the time. TV shows do it. There's a reason why TV shows work and why some don't. Yeah. And most of it's because they decide they want to step away from the box. Mm-hmm. And I hate to say the box because we all want to think outside the box, but there are certain boxes that if you stay within the lines,
it works for a vast majority of people.
Yeah. And you're right, Shadow. Mimicry is the highest form of compliment, and I agree. We as Dungeons and Dragons players and TTRPG players, when we're pulling from things like this, it's not we're not pulling from them just because we want to pull from them. We're pulling from them because it's something that we enjoy, right? I'm not going to go pull stuff. I'm not going to know about something I don't really enjoy. So if somebody goes, hey, I want a story on, I want a campaign on this, either I've got two choices. Either it's got to be something I enjoy, or I got to go read about this thing. So I mean, it's kind of how it works, right? If I was not a fairy tale person, you went, we're diving Alice in Wonderland. I'm like, okay. All right, cool.
Well, see, a lot of times too, when we shifted into those, I didn't tell them which one was
which
next,
one you were diving in.
which one they landed in. They had to kind of figure out and kind of piece it, and I would change key characters around on them. So they would encounter somebody and think, like they encountered the White Rabbit and they didn't realize that he was homicidal. So
actually encountered Mad Hatter. He just dresses like the White Rabbit now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So no, that's great. And like I said, those are some neat ideas. I hate to say this because our stream has been taking some hits on, with scheduling issues, and most of us have worked conventions over the last couple of months where we're on burnout at certain times and trying to get everybody back together and back on the same page. I feel like we're running into a slump, and something like that where we could pull from, Lord of the Rings, fairy tales, anything, it will kind of dive us back into the puzzle, and I think it's going to be the next step. Now, due to my schedule, and surprisingly enough, I wouldn't say I'm concerned, but it is a new chapter for the Misfits. I'm stepping away from the Dungeon Master's seat in almost 3.5 years. So I don't know how I feel about that, because I've never let somebody full-fledged take over the stream for a long period of time.
You're like, this is my baby.
It really is, and we made this as a group, but as the Dungeon Master, I've kind of coddled it and been like, this is my take care of you. And now we're getting ready to dive into Avatar: The Last Airbender, and one of our wonderful players, Phil, is going to take over that game master seat and the lore keeper and all that, and I'm diving in as a character. So I'm super excited and nervous and all that fun stuff. So that'll be launching here in May. But yeah, no, we're looking at doing kind of, hopefully opening up over the next couple months, a way for players to come and interact with us and have fun. And maybe you are that group that can't ever find a game. Come hop in the Discord, ask around. There are a lot of people doing a lot of weird things in the world that have weird schedules. Maybe yours will wrap up with it. We never know. I found most of my players online. I mean, that's really where it's at nowadays.
A lot of it is gravitated away from.
I don't have a home game anymore, and it makes me sad.
Yeah,
I have a whole bunch of minis now, and all these other random things. So I'm trying to find a home game, but we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
So let's dive back a little bit. So now we talked about where the TTRPG connection came from. It came from your brother, and that's where you guys kind of honed it. And then you've taken that kind of as a way to embellish on and work with your own artwork, which I think is awesome. I mean, I would love to have phrase that. I love having an artist in our party because it makes my life easier. Because I can't draw for anything. I can do very
problem solvers.
I can do very decent incarnate maps, and that's about it. As long as you give me tokens, I'm good. I can poke things around. I was good at Legos when I was younger, so I figured it was kind of similar to that. But yeah, no, like I said, I commend, I respect, I almost am jealous of a visual artist. Everybody tells me, "Oh, you're an artist. You talk and you can tell stories." I get that. There's something about putting things visual that makes me just. I wish I could do it.
I think it comes down to there's this little thing for all of us where it's like whatever we're good at, we don't really value as well as we should, and we always look to something we can't do that we enjoy. And
right?
Like, man, I wish I could do that. Like I look at people that can play music. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket if you showed me how with both hands. Like, I can't do it. I've tried
Carry a
every
basic
instrument.
tune, if you're put in if I'm put in a group and we're all singing together, I can still hold it. But if you put me alone, it's not going to be good. And it's going to be yeah. And don't ask me to play an instrument; I'll break it before I even play it. So this is how it works. But no, you're right, and it's something that people, myself included, as a dungeon master, sometimes we take a lot of blunt. We take a lot of the flack.
Mhm.
I'm always the one that at the end of the night I'm going, man, that could have been better. But in all honesty, we all have our skill sets.
Mhm.
And so it's so awesome to put all those skill sets together for something like a Dungeons and Dragons stream or, party group anyways, because it was really cool the first time I got to see a character drawn from my story, and I was like, holy crap, you did this. And they're like, oh yeah, I know, this is our characters, and we decided we'd go get it drawn up for us, and that way we can have them for the game. And I was like, that's neat. I was like, I feel, and then I saw the picture, and it was a very dramatic moment in our campaign that they did it of, and I was like, oh no, that's not just your characters, like that's the moment your character died. Like that was a huge moment. And I was blown away because I never thought that would be captured in the moment type thing, and they brought it to me, and they're like, yeah, we got this for ourselves, but at the same time it means a lot to you. And I was like, oh my goodness, you're right, because I didn't really mean to kill the character. But funny story on that one, the way I play criticals is with epic strength. So every die takes max damage at first, and then you roll for additional. And our cleric, or our sorcerer, our divine sorceress, was battling a bone devil, and she critted with a level 2 or level 3, I can't remember which level it was, inflict wounds, which is like 5d8 or something like that, and almost killed it in 2 shots. Like
just shriveled up
80 or 90 damage. Now mind you, these things have like 200 some health, so and I didn't think I was going to do it, but then I turned around and critted her with the bone spike tail that's like double the amount of what the inflict wounds did. It killed her on spot. And I was like, didn't mean to do that.
But
it was yeah, she became a skewer. Like literally the bone just went through her chest, like you would see on a Predator or an Alien movie.
Yeah.
And then her husband's character was like her guardian, and it was a minotaur, and he like picked her up and like carried her away out of the battle, ignored everyone else around. So that's what we have, is the picture of her sitting in his arms, and she's dead. And I was like, I want to cry right now. This was
that'd be pretty emotional.
Yeah, it was intense, I'm not gonna lie. But that was the first time I had seen a character like that type of mentality, because otherwise I was just running fun little games. But that was my first long-term game that we ran together, and seeing that come together, I was like, wow, this is awesome. Now, mind you, like, I've seen your artwork. Your artwork is like, whoa. And
well, thank you.
Like, I was blown away. One of the reasons I reach out, I reach out because it's things I see are interesting. Otherwise, it's also because I think others will enjoy it as well. So we're getting ready to close down on our hour. I'm going to drop the link in Google Chat. It doesn't look like we've had any tips popped in just yet. It doesn't mean they won't. But if you're interested in creating hiss, definitely keep that link, because if he does get created, you can actually go get him. And
where did you pop the link into?
It's in Twitch.
In Twitch. All right.
Yep.
I don't think.
And if you're not in Twitch, I can toss it to you in Zoom when we end.
Yeah, if you toss me that afterwards, I'll take a look. Or now. Either way is good.
Yeah. So, friends, people of the tavern, if you have any questions, this is the time to do it. We're about 5 minutes out. Chris, if you have anything last you want to say or give ideas,
if you
anything?
if you guys want to find any of the work that I've done, I go by the handle of Dwarven Palette on both Facebook, Instagram, and I have thedwarvenpalette.com is my website, which has a full-blown gallery on it that I can curate and change from everything that I've done, from fine art projects to comic book artwork to fantasy artwork to public artwork, because I've painted a lot of life-size horse sculptures here in the town that I live in. It's one of the things that they do. So there's about 3 or so of those that I've done in the last couple of years for the city. So, and they're positioned around in different buildings and whatnot, but there's all sorts of stuff that you can check out there. I even have a storefront that has a bunch of stuff. I do my own custom tokens because I play Magic and I've always enjoyed that. So a lot of my artwork that you'll see that's done when I've done personal pieces end up being tokens for stuff that's on there.
Oh, cool.
But yeah.
For my table, you might see Tiamat show up one day. We'll find out. Yeah, one of my tables is playing in Horde of the Dragon Queen, so we'll see where
you should definitely use the art.
Yeah,
I give you permission. Use the art, flash it up there, show it off.
Yeah,
I have the original still. I painted that one actually for me.
Oh, nice. Question from Shadow in the audience: what's the craziest piece you've worked on before?
Craziest?
You mean craziest as in like most difficult or like most popular? How do we want to go?
Well, crazy? I've got a couple of different things that I can go with, because 2 years ago I was one of the working artists on the Battle of the Brushes here in town. And it is a live head-to-head painting competition where it's basically where we painted 4 foot by 4 foot panels in 8 hours. And there were about 10 of us artists that were all doing it, and we were all going head-to-head. It got judged at the end. It was like you had to have a finished piece in 8 hours on a 4 foot canvas. And we did it in front of a live audience.
Well,
so it was crazy intense and it was a very rewarding experience.
I bet.
As far as like some of the craziest pieces I've done, it's just I'll get lost in the details, especially in like forest scenes. So I'll sit there and paint like little tiny leaves and stuff that nobody sees except for me. I'm like, I know they're there.
I saw them. They're right there.
Nobody else knows. Right there. Yeah. But
and then when they point out, they go, "Oh, I see it now."
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Have you done any? I would say like any like big name stuff that like somebody might know.
I don't think I've necessarily hit any of the bigger markets for a lot of that stuff. I've worked with some other people, like I've worked with Gamescape 3D, and when we did a bunch of stuff for Worlds Overrun, that was me and several other guys that all worked together on that one. That's where the big castle came from. Matter of fact, if you want the files for the castle or any of the characters and stuff, it's all on Top Doug Design on Mini Hoarder. So anybody that wants that stuff, that's where you can find it all. He also has all of the dinosaurs and everything that we did when we did Beasts of Burden. That one was a fun one.
Sounds like fun.
A bunch of dinosaurs. Generally, I think we had like 3 or 4 poses for each of them. That we had them as pack animals, we had them unarmored, we had them armored, and we generally had like an attack pose and a bunch of other stuff. So there's a bunch of really cool dinosaurs that went along with that.
And that sounds like a perfect time for Tomb of Annihilation right there.
Exactly. And on top of that, they're already scaled to 28 millimeters, so you don't have to do anything. Matter of fact, I've got one sitting here on the desk that I can show you.
Yeah, I've
got the T-Rex here, which is 28 millimeter, and this is a full 3D print of one that I designed. And this one just has a zenithal on it, just to show off the detail on there. And you can get in there. He's got some cool stuff. He's like, "Rah."
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. No, I'm not gonna lie. I saw that, and I'm gonna make sure that my my Tuesday players go on and watch the show, because that is something that they've seen before.
Some shots of him, and we should have some other stuff there too. If you go to the Mini Hoarder thing from Top Doug Design, I'll see if I can find you a link after this, and you can go there. But there's images of all those things, and you can just literally pull those unless you want to get a model. because I think all of them are purchasable individual. And I think he also offers printing for making them at this point now too, because he finally got his render farm up. So,
awesome.
But yeah,
all right.
Stuff.
Well, Chris, if you have nothing else to give us, and the audience seems to be out of questions, and we're almost at 10 o'clock, I think it's time for us to call last call. So for everybody that's watching and that has been watching, make sure you grab that Google Drive link if you want to get Hiss, if it's created. Otherwise, definitely go check out thedwarvenpalette.com to go check out all of his artwork. Go give him a follow on Instagram so you can see the sculpts and the other things that he's done. And of course, come back every Wednesday and every Sunday to come hang out with us on
absolutely
at the Tabletop Misfits. Next week, just a surprise for people that aren't really aware of this yet. Next week, we're going to start our first deep dive. Now, when I say first one, this is the first time I've ever had a guest more than a week at a time. So we're going to get the entire crew, or at least part of the crew, of the Eldritch Buddies podcast over on Spotify. So that's going to be Connor, their dungeon master, and a couple of their players off and on for about a month. And we're going to dive into things like world building, character building, monster creation, conflicts, podcasting, all that stuff. And we're going to do it for an entire month. So we're excited to have them for a few weeks, and we're going to see how this goes. So come with your questions. Hope we see everybody back. And until then, I'm going to close the door, and everybody have a wonderful, wonderful evening.